My name is BJ, and I'm the organizer for HackBuddy JavaScript LA. Been doing it for years. This is 2021. So, new year, or we're kind of almost towards 2022. So upcoming new year, we're going to be focusing a lot on, React, Vue.js, mobile app development, a lot of cool things that, our community is really into. Tonight's talk is on Blitz Js, which I had the honor of reaching out and meeting Brandon through my team, and just kind of like we're watching his videos on YouTube. So I really recommend people go and check this out. It's a really cool concept. I'm going to put a link to that in our chat as well, so you can have the video if you want to save it somewhere. He does a pretty good job of like demoing this. So in addition to this video, I'm sure he'll have some content for our group that he goes over more stuff in depth. So that's pretty cool. If you want to reach out to me, I'm on LinkedIn. This is like the easiest way to reach out to me on VJ Extreme on LinkedIn. Like you can send me a message, tell me about like what you're into, what you're learning, what you want to get better at. And maybe if I have the connections to help you out, I'll try my best to do that, or if I have the capacity to help you out in terms of what I'm able to do, I can help you out. If you want to follow my group, it's HackBuddy on LinkedIn as well. Here's a link to that as well. And then, also like most of the information that you need is pretty much on our website, javascriptla.net. The reason we call ourselves HackBuddy is also because we have a sister site that we have been kind of like on and off working on, and it will get better with the next year, where we transition completely over to HackBuddy. If you want to watch our videos, if your question is, how do I watch, these meetups afterwards, you can always go to our YouTube channel and check it out, see some of the past videos. This talk on TypeScript is really awesome. So this really actually helped me prepare for learning a lot of the new fancy stuff that's in Blitz JS. So I highly recommend it. Twitter is also a good place. I know like programmers love Twitter. So you can reach out to us on Twitter. Feel free to retweet or tweet at us and tell us what we should be focused on if you think there's this particular technology you want to learn or get better at. Instagram. We also have a coding community for people who want to open source and get better. And so this is like where you can go to like practice stuff that you might not be able to do yet at work, right? Like, so maybe you're working on like this huge legacy stack at work, and you just really want to learn like, Vue.js, or you want to learn like, Blitz, right? You want to learn Blitz JS. You don't have the opportunity to learn that. You could do that with us here, in Team Hack. Try to like learn, maybe position like some kind of proof of concept. The team that we have so far is pretty cool. A lot of us meet on Discord. And so, like just come to Discord. That's kind of like my favorite place to go and like talk to people, and then find us on the Team Hack channel. There's a lot of conversations in here. We meet every other Tuesday. And so that's like after hours, like after work. And it's pretty much on Zoom too. So all you have to do is just kind of like join in and say hello. You can pretty much learn with us. We do demos on, code that we're learning, new technologies like TypeScript. We do interview questions. Sometimes we practice data structures and algorithms. We do book reviews, code reviews, all kinds of fun stuff, JavaScript design patterns. So it's a good way to kind of level up your skill to the next level, especially if you're kind of in between, you're trying to look for a better job, trying to look for better pay, trying to just like build like that next level app that gets you like $1 billion, right? It's kind of like the idea. Like, I don't know if we're there yet, but like, we're kind of like, that's our 30-year goal anyway. Like someday maybe I'll own like some company like Nintendo. That'd be like my dream. So yeah, just basically, these are all the ways to follow me, follow the group and get, in touch, rely on this community, Discord and Slack. There are links on our website right here to get there. Yeah, and if you have any questions, feel free to just drop them in the chat, drop them on my LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever you like. All right. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into farmers, and then we'll go into Brandon's presentation. And Ranjit, do you need me to share? Do you need to share your screen by any chance?
I mean, I don't need to really share anything.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, you can go ahead and exactly. Yeah, this is good enough for now.
Okay, perfect. So do you want to say anything, or do you want me to just kind of like?
Yeah, I can quickly, yeah, welcome everyone. Good evening, first of all, and yeah, welcome to Meetup, JavaScript LA Meetup. This is the great place to be, all techies. So I'm glad that yeah, I get an opportunity to introduce myself and welcome you all. And thank you on behalf of our company, Farmers Insurance. So I'll quickly tell about myself. I basically joined Farmers 4 years back around as a full stack developer. And yeah, currently I work as a technical lead. And Farmers basically works on all kind of technologies, latest, I would say, right? When it comes to Angular, we have the latest version of Angular we are working on. When it comes to Java, yeah, we try to keep up with the latest version of Java. We upgrade. I try to upgrade every year and try to make sure that we are using the latest feature. Similarly, we have the mobile app like iOS, Android. So yeah, many technologies we are using in-house, and there are always a lot of opportunities here. So I would yeah, suggest actually to visit the farmers.com/career page, and you'll see actually a lot of many positions available over there. It's not always the positions, yeah, all the time listed, but currently I know there are positions open in Angular, in Java, in iOS and Android. All the 4 areas there are positions open. So anyone interested, either you or in your circle, anyone, friends, right? Please feel free to reach out to me. I can post my email address in the chat window, and you will have it. Sorry about that. So yeah, that's pretty much I would like to say. And yeah, any questions, feel free to again send in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sponsoring the group.
Thanks. Back to you.
Yep. Okay, Brandon, whenever you are ready, we can jump over to you.
I am ready.
Perfect. Okay. Before you start, I just want to remind people on this call and throughout this call to just have a basic business etiquette. If you're not speaking, please mute yourself. And if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand, or you can leave a question in the chat. And then periodically, if Brandon is ready to take questions, we can have him answer the questions there, or we can also have him answer the questions towards the end as well.
Yep.
All right, Brandon, feel free to take it away.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good to be here. So for most of the past 4 years, I was like this guy, happily building full stack React apps. I was fully content to put up with the complexity and struggle required to do so. And I did that because I loved building user interfaces with React more than any other way. But the honeymoon ended, and I became increasingly frustrated with everything it would take just to get a new app set up. It would take like a week or longer just to integrate all the libraries and make all these decisions. And beyond that, I grew weary of the API layer, and messing with REST APIs and GraphQL APIs and the whole enchilada just really wore me down. Anything that got in the way of me building features slowly depleted my morale. I really wanted to love full stack development again. I wanted to be extremely productive again. I wanted to focus on building features instead of all the boring stuff that would make me want to quit work early. So I decided enough was enough, and I set out to build the best possible developer experience for building full stack React apps. So there was two things that I had to have to achieve the developer experience that I wanted. Number one, it had to be monolithic. Monolithic means there's one thing to reason about when you're thinking about your application, one thing to develop, one thing to deploy. And it's just so much simpler than having, thousands of microservices. And then secondly, is I wanted to get rid of the API layer, because the API layer in React apps is one of the biggest sources of complexity, confusion, headache, hardship, heartache, and every other bad adjective that you can think of. And I wanted to get rid of it. Now I got into web development through Ruby on Rails. And Ruby on Rails doesn't have an API layer by default because it's all server-side rendered. And so this was the only way that I knew to get rid of the API layer. And when I first announced Blitz in February of last year, the initial launch and the demo was server-side rendered. But I didn't love it. It wasn't awesome. So me and the other Blitz contributors were talking and having lots of ideas and conversations about what would the architecture look like and what could be the best setup. And one day I was laying in a hammock in Thailand pondering this. And I asked myself, what would this look like if it was easy? And suddenly this picture flooded my imagination, and I could see myself writing a function that would just run on the server. And inside that function, I would talk to a database or whatever. And then I would import that function directly into my React components, and it would magically work like a normal function call without any REST or GraphQL APIs. And I was like, wow, now that is awesome. But is it even possible? Can we even make it work? And it turns out, yes, it is possible. And it is now one of the flagship features of Blitz Js. So most of you have probably heard about Next.js. If you haven't, it is a hybrid React framework. And it's really great because it's super flexible, and it allows you to have, on a per page basis, to choose between server-side rendering, client-side rendering, and static page generation like Gatsby. And then also it has API routes, which allows you to add, server functionality. And so it's really kind of powerful and flexible. But if you've ever used Next to build a full stack app, you'll know that it takes a lot of work to get it set up to do full stack development. And that's because Next.js is very minimal. And so you have to bring tons of stuff to get it working. And then even then there's some limitations which are not ideal for building full stack apps. But we decided that Next.js would be the perfect foundation to build the next generation Ruby on Rails for JavaScript and React. So everything you know about Next, you get in Blitz. But Blitz is a fork of Next.js that adds power features for building full stack apps. So we take everything that Next.js has, we keep that, and then we add a bunch of power features on top of it for that makes your life, so much better. And people literally tell us that it makes them 5 to 10 times more productive than other stacks, which is wild, but is pretty awesome. So the next thing that you'll find in Blitz is we use Prisma by default for the ORM and database management layer. Prisma is not required by Blitz, and you can take Prisma out and replace it with something else. But we think Prisma is best for most people. Prisma is a next generation Node and TypeScript ORM. And it's really awesome. It's really nice to use, and it has kind of two key features. Number one is managing your database schema and migrations. So to do that with Prisma, it allows you write a Prisma schema file, which is what you're seeing here, and you define your database structure, your models and fields in a GraphQL-like syntax. So it's very easy to read and write. And once you do this, you'll run the Prisma migrate command, and it will automatically generate the migration files for you and update your database. And so it'll do that in development and production. And so that's all you have to do to manage your database migrations. Secondly, Prisma provides a database client so that you can make queries and create items, update items, etc., without knowing SQL. And so what you see here is the really simple and elegant Prisma database interface that allows you to access all your models, do all types of queries and things. Is very powerful. And this client is generated, is fully type safe. So if you use TypeScript, then this is like a huge win for TypeScript because it's fully typed. So it always will match your database schema, and you get autocomplete, and it's just really awesome. So you also get autocomplete for regular JavaScript if you're using VS Code. So you also benefit there. All right, so let's talk about the foundational principles that we've used to build and craft Blitz and kind of give it the direction. Number one is full stack and monolithic. Second is API not required. And so I've talked about how we wanted to get rid of the API layer, but of course, you can add your own REST or GraphQL API to a Blitz app if you want. Convention over configuration. And this means that things just work by default without you configuring it. So the opposite would be Webpack, which is configuration over convention. Like you have to configure everything just to get anything to work. So Blitz is the opposite. Things just work by default. Number four is loose opinions. And what this means is that we have opinions and recommendations for the best way to do things, to structure your code, etc. But there is very, very little that we actually enforce. And so overall, Blitz is much easier to go off the rails than it is with Ruby on Rails. Easy to start, easy to scale. So we care about all parts of the application lifecycle. So we want it to be really easy to get started, to build simple apps and toy projects, but then we also want it to scale to your multi-million-dollar business. And so far, I think we're doing pretty well at meeting both of these. Stability, we care a lot about stability, and once we get to 1.0, we will have some type of stable and predictable release cycle. And last but not least is community over code. I care a lot about the Blitz community, and I'm very intentional about building the community to be a really fun, warm, welcome, friendly, fun place. And I essentially built a community before I actually built a project. But I love the Blitz community. It's super awesome. We just passed 2,000 members in our Discord last week or 2 weeks ago. So that's super exciting. And I would love for each of you to join the Blitz community as well. All right, so when you start using Blitz, like the first thing you'll notice is that there's a ton of boring stuff that's already done for you that you never have to think about again as long as you use Blitz. So things like giving you a folder structure, your linting, code formatting, Git hooks, testing, and a database is all already set up for you out of the box. Also forms, we let you choose between one of the top 3 form providers, form libraries, and we set up like an integration there. So you have your own form component that wraps that form. It makes it, better, nicer to use in your code. But the big one is user sign up, login, and log out is already set up for you. So as soon as you create a new app with Blitz, you can immediately create a user and log in, log out, and even reset your password is all set up for you. So you never have to do authentication ever again if you use Blitz. All right, so remember how I was laying in that hammock in Thailand and I had that picture in my imagination about writing a function and then importing it into my React components? So we call that the zero API data layer. Now, just like serverless still has servers, zero API still has an API. But what we do is we abstract the API into a compile step. So as a developer, you don't have to think about the API. You just focus on functions that talk to databases and modify code and whatever, return data. And we take care of getting that data from the front end to the back end, both for queries and mutations. So let's look at some live code. All right, so here we are in the terminal, and I have just generated a new app. So I've ran Blitz new rocket launcher, and this is what you see when you generate a new app. Now, you can see that it creates quite a lot of files. So don't be intimidated. There's quite a bit here, but what we're optimizing for is not an impressive, like, wow, this is so simple, there's only 2 files. Because if that's the case, then as soon as you need to go do something, build a real app, you're having to add all these files. And Next.js sort of has that kind of experience. So what we're optimizing for is building a real app. So we give you everything that you're going to need, and it's already set up for you. So take your time going through it, kind of getting familiar with it. And the benefit is that once you do that, then it's going to be very familiar for every Blitz app, right? So each time you create a new app, like you already know everything that's there, where it's at. If you go to another Blitz project, then the structure is going to be quite similar. And a lot of this is just auth code. We will be adding a minimal new app template, so it'll basically remove most of this if you just want to like do something very minimal with Blitz. But that'll be coming. So we install all your dependencies, and we go ahead and set up an SQLite database for you, so that it's immediate, just automatic, and you're ready to read and write data from your database. Now we set up SQLite by default because it's installed on everyone's computers, but we recommend switching out to Postgres or MySQL or something else for your production application. All right, so we're inside the directory here, and we're going to run Blitz Dev, and that will fire up the server, and we'll see what we get. A little slow because we're streaming here, but okay. So a simple, getting started page, but what you'll notice is there's a sign up and a login button. So let's sign up. All right, bam. So there we go. In just like a minute, I've generated a new app, I've signed up, and now I'm logged in, and now I'm ready to start building features. Isn't that cool? All right, so now let's go ahead and start adding code because everything's already set up for us, so we can just start building features. And we're just gonna take this snippet here. So it says to add a new model to your app, run this in your terminal. So we're gonna go kill the server and run blitz generate all project. so project is the name of the model here. So pretend we're building a project management app, something like that. And then we have a name, attribute, which is a string, and we could add other attributes in here too. So it's very similar to Rails if you've used Rails. All right, so we're going to click generate. And this is going to generate all the files. Oops. Demo is okay. I think hold on. So apparently I'm using experimental version of Blitz, which I thought I'd changed to the regular version, but so this is a bug. And actually, what's this? Okay, yes. UV equals so what this does, there we go, this is better. Live debugging. So this generates all the files that you need for all the CRUD operations. So create, read, update, and delete. So it gives you pages for viewing a list of projects, a single project, edit a project, and then create a new project. And then all your server side code for get one, get many, create, update, and delete. And then it also adds that model to your database schema. So in this case, the Prisma schema file, and automatically adds an ID, created that, updated that for you, and then the attribute that you specified. And it's going to ask if we want to update our database, and I'll say yeah. And that will go ahead and generate a migration file, a SQL file, which you can go in and look at and see the raw SQL, and it will update the database. So now we can run Blitz Dev again. And let's see what we have. So we'll go to /projects. And waiting for it to load. Right, here we go. We got the loading indicator. You can do it. There we go. All right, so this is showing a list of projects, but there's no projects in the database. So let's go ahead and create a project. And so notice that it has kind of standardized routing. So project/new, and we'll just say meetup, presentation, create that project. And there we go. Now it's already data in the database. This is the data that's in there, and it's on the project/1. So /project/1 is the URL. And so that's the ID, project ID of 1. So now we can go ahead and edit this, and we could update the name there, and where that's already working, I could delete or go back here to the list, and now you can see the list of projects. And notice there's pagination is already like scaffolded in here for you too, because I always hated, adding pagination, and you almost always need it. So hallelujah, you don't have to do it with Blitz. You don't have to build it yourself. All right. So let's go see what some of this code looks like. And we're going to go ahead and look at get project. And let me just reformat this code slightly to make it a little bit easier. So a query and a mutation, the signature of what you're doing is you're exporting a default function that takes the input argument as the first parameter and a context as the second one, and then returns some result. Okay, so that is your that's the signature, is the first input arguments, context, which Blitz provides for you, and a result. But we have this resolver.pipe thing here, which is a functional pipe. So it's like some functional programming where, but what it does is pipes the input from the output of one function into the input of the next. And so it just chains them together. And we have it in here by default because it makes a bunch of things so much nicer with TypeScript, with automatically adding types and things for you. So this inside this pipe, the first thing we do is call resolver.zod. And Zod is a input validation library like Yup, if you've heard of that or used it. So Zod is like that, but it's better for TypeScript, or it works great for JavaScript too. And so this takes a schema, and in the schema we've defined that says, hey, require an ID, and the ID must be a type of number. So if this doesn't pass that schema, then it's going to throw an error and none of the rest of the code will run. All right, so the second thing is we are calling resolver.authorize, and this will ensure that the user is logged in. So if the user isn't logged in, this line will throw an error and the rest of this code will not run. Okay. We could also add a certain role if we wanted to. So you also have authorization built into here. So we could say authorize admin. And in this case, you would not only have to be logged in, but also have to have an admin role. Otherwise, you would get an authorization error. All right, so now we can get to the actual code. So it's very important when you're, because these queries and mutations are exposed to the internet, and so it's very important that you have input validation for them and authentication if you don't want people hacking your app. So the actual code in here is very simple. We just call DB, which is Prisma, db.project.findFirst, where the ID is equal to the ID that we're passing in. Okay, so simple database query to find a single project, and that will return a project that it may or may not exist, so it's project or null. And so if it doesn't, then we're going to throw a not found error, and that will result in a 404 page being presented to the user. And then otherwise, we just go ahead and return that project. Okay, so this is all the server code. There's no HTTP in here, no headers, no cookies. You don't have to know about any of that. It's just a normal function that returns any old data. Okay, so how did we use this? Well, good question. So we go to project ID page. And in here, we have, this is just a normal React component. So it's like a Next.js page where it exports the default function down here. That is your default page, okay? And inside this function, we get the router, we get the project ID from the URL, and the /project/1/2/3, whatever. And so we're getting, that's the ID. And then we have this use query hook that we bring in from Blitz. This is actually built on top of React query, which is amazing. You should use React query in every single project you use with React, even if you don't use Blitz. All right, so we have this use query hook. Now the magic happens where we import that function that we were looking at just a little bit ago, that server function, get project, this one right here. So we're importing that directly. So we're importing like that function, like literally we're importing that directly and passing it to use query as the first argument, and the second argument is the input data. So this is, remember, we needed an ID. So there's that ID. All right. And then it returns a project dot, and you can see all the attributes. And that's it. That's all you have to do. And it just magically works. Okay, so this is actually loaded on the client side at runtime through the auto-generated API. You don't have to do any REST, no GraphQL, and it just, automatically works. And I also want to highlight that, notice the autocomplete here, so we have, with TypeScript, with JS, you would have autocomplete too. Both TS, you also have the, the types. And this is just automatic for you without any type of code generation process. So if you use GraphQL, for example, you have to have a separate process running that's recompiling your types anytime you make any changes. But with Blitz, you don't need that. It's just, it automatically works just, and it makes me so happy, so awesome. Okay, so also notice that there's no if loading, else if error dance here. We just get this project and then we immediately render it. Isn't that interesting? How does this happen? It's because we are using React Suspense, which is in pre-release, but it's coming in React 18, the very next release. And so we actually generate all new Blitz apps with the alpha version of React. And the React alpha is the React 18 alpha, so it's coming. Facebook has been using this in production for years at this point, and we've had it in Blitz since the beginning, which is like over a year ago, and it works amazing. It's really awesome. So down here below, we have the suspense component, and that wraps that project above that's actually loading the data. And so the suspense component is where you pass in the loading indicator. And it's just really elegant. Now, okay, so let's see. So let's talk about error handling. So this is like the happy path, right? So what happens if there's an error, which we've seen over here, that if there's no project, then that's going to throw a not found error. And then also if there's not logged in, that's going to throw an error. So this is something that is really, really awesome in Blitz. How do you handle errors in JavaScript typically? With try catch, right? So we extend the try catch model to your whole stack. So catch this. If you throw an error on the server, you can catch that error on the client. And in React, how do you catch errors? What is the try catch for React? It's an error boundary. So an error boundary is how you catch server errors on the client. So we're going to go look in _app, which is the _app page is the very root of your Blitz application. So it's the same as Next.js. And in here, you export a default function. And we're going to wrap that this entire application with an error boundary component. And this is set up for you by default. And in this error boundary, we take a fallback component, which is right here. And inside this, it gets an instance of that error. And so the generated code that we have for you by default, it says, hey, if this error is an instance of authentication error, then just show the login form. So we're not even redirecting you to a different route. You can do that if you want, but we think it's best for, instead of redirecting you somewhere, just show a login form. And then as soon as they log in, the login form goes away and they see the data they were wanting. All right, so next, if the error is an instance of authorization error, then we'll say, hey, sorry, not authorized to access this. And then lastly, we just fall back to using the status code property on that error if it exists and the error.message. And so in the not found error case, it'll run this line of code and the status code will be 404 and the error message not found. And so that's how you catch errors in Blitz. Okay, so it's wild, but it's so cool. All right, so another thing I want to highlight about how we make client and server so nice is if you've done any SPA stuff, I'm sure you've had to deal with dates. And you know that dates come from the server, like through an API, they come as strings. And on the client, in your React code, if you want to modify or display that date in a special way, you have to convert the string back to a date and then modify it, right? Well, in Blitz, we do date serialization and deserialization automatically for you. So if you return a date from your query or mutation, then it'll come out a date exactly on the client. And so you can see here is that this created that property is indeed a date. And at runtime, it is indeed a date because we automatically do that for you. And in fact, we also serialize and deserialize maps, sets, regex, and error objects, custom classes, basically everything. And we built a custom library to do that called SuperJSON, which you can use in your own applications. Okay. Let's see. So I think we've covered a lot of this. We have a lot of other awesome stuff, like you can set .authenticate on the page, and that will authenticate the client side. So you have to, because it's like an SPA, so you can authenticate the server, which you want to do no matter what. But you can also just have a authenticate on the client, which, like, instead of waiting for the data to come back from the server to say, hey, you're not authorized to view this, you have to be logged in, this will do a check on the client side, so it's much quicker response. Okay, so we could look at the okay, let's look at this delete mutation. Yeah. All right. So we have delete project mutation. Let's go look at the code on the server. So again, here at the top, we have the delete project ZOD schema. And then we have this resolver.pipe. And then we ensure that the input is correct. We ensure that you're logged in. And then we call db.project.delete mini, where we delete that ID. Okay. So, and then on the back in our React component, we have this button right here. And in the onClick, we call delete project mutation. This actually comes from this hook. So you import delete project. Sorry, I kind of doing this backwards. First thing is you do import delete project, and then pass it to the use mutation hook that Blitz provides. And then that returns a function that you can call directly. So we call await delete project mutation, and we pass the ID. And so essentially this line is like we're calling this backend function, like just a regular function, right? And then it just works. Ah, yes, routes manifest. Okay, so I'll show you this a little bit later. I think there's all the code to show you for now. All right, so let's go back to slides. All right, so this is routes manifest. This is amazing, incredible, awesome. That this is something that Next.js doesn't add, that we add on top of it. So what we do is Blitz automatically generates this thing for you and gives access to this routes object that you can import routes from Blitz. And this allows you to link to routes dot the name of the page. So in this case, the home page is called home. In your code is actually home. If you change the home, then this would change as well. But this, instead of linking, like by default, you would have to link to slash just index or slash home, whatever the URL for this is, just as a regular string. And regular strings, they have a number of problems. If you change the route, so if you have a page, let's say the home page, and you change it from like just the very root, just slash, and to actually slash home, then you would have to go everywhere in your code base, do search, string replace, search, and change those links where you're linking to that string. But with this routes manifest, because you're linking to the name of the page, you can move that page anywhere else, and the links will just be automatically updated for you by Blitz. Okay, and then also this provides static typing. So when you're using TypeScript, it will warn you if you are trying to link to a page that doesn't exist. And actually, it'll work for JavaScript too, because since it's a function call, then if homepage does not exist, then this function call will fail at build time. So prevents broken links both for JavaScript and TypeScript, and decouples your links from your linking to a page name versus the URL. All right, some other things that we have. So how many of you enjoy setting up third-party libraries, like going to the docs, figuring out what dependencies to install, figuring out what code changes to make? Anyone enjoy that? I can't see your hands. I'm guessing not. Okay, they're saying no in the chat. LOL, no, no. All right. So you don't have to do that with Blitz anymore. Good news. We have a thing called recipes that allows you to install third-party libraries, or in fact, any arbitrary code with one command. So for example, you can run blitz install chakra-ui, and it will automatically install all the dependencies needed for chakra, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 5, whatever it is. It will install any configuration files that you need, and it will go in to the root of your application and add the theme provider for you automatically. So it's super cool. We have a fair number, not a lot. We need anybody can create your own recipe, contribute recipes to the main Blitz repo. It's still a bit difficult to make them. We need to make better abstractions to make it easier, but it's pretty cool. All right, Blitz console. So if you have used Rails, you know about the Rails console, and Blitz console is that version of that. Essentially, it's a smart REPL, or like if you just run no to the command line, it'll open up. You can just type code in there. That's Blitz console is that. It lets you run code on the command line, but it automatically loads your database client and your Blitz queries and mutations. So it's really great for running one-off commands, testing different inputs, outputs, and you can do that in development and then also production. Okay, so some other things we have is a Passport.js adapter, which makes it easy to add social login via Facebook, GitHub, Twitter, whatever. Any type of Passport.js strategy you can plug in. Very straightforward. We have HTTP middleware if you need to do some more advanced stuff like cores, for example. Advanced data serialization, which I mentioned. You can deploy Blitz to a server or to serverless, your choice. We have full custom server support. We actually have our custom server support is much more first class than Next.js. So we have we support custom servers in TypeScript and hot reloading and all that. And then database agnostic, so you can use any database you want with Blitz. So it's very flexible. So where are we? We are in late beta, nearing the release candidate for 1.0, which we expect to have by end of year. And even though we're not to 1.0 quite yet, we have thousands of businesses all around the world using Blitz in production, and it's super awesome. So it's a great time to start building production apps. You can even use it in production. It's mainly like, since we're built, like we're forking Next.js, right? So the foundation is Next.js, which is already battle tested. And mainly it's just various little like UX, maybe annoyances or things that we're working on. We don't expect any major breaking changes before 1.0. So it's a great time to start using Blitz. So here are some of the types of people using Blitz already. At Golia, the search company, GraphCMS, there's a large US university, there's an Australian energy company, their user-facing application is built on Blitz. A lot of startups are choosing Blitz for its iteration speed, a lot of agencies, and we're seeing even some agencies pop up that are basically catering just Blitz apps. That's all they do. And then also there's people who are converting existing Rails and Laravel apps over to Blitz. Okay, and then student side projects. So here's a pretty cool something someone said. So he said, I use Rails professionally for over a decade, and I feel 10 times more productive on Blitz already after just a few months. That's wild. If you want to see more things like that, go to blitzjs.com/fame, and that will take you to a Twitter thread where I have a bunch of things that linking to what people are saying about using Blitz. Okay, so how can you get started with Blitz? Install the Blitz CLI globally using npm or yarn, and then run blitz new and give it the name of your application, and that's it. You'll be off to the races. So we are an open source project, and so we need your help. We love your help. You can become involved in lots of different ways, code, documentation. You can become, we have level 1, level 2 maintainers, and then also core team. You're welcome to be involved as much or as little as you want. And then also donations and sponsorships. We really appreciate, especially businesses sponsoring us. And this link down here at the bottom is the best place to get started on learning how to contribute to Blitz. So we have a kind of a thorough tell you how to get started, how to download the code, what issues to work on, etc. All right, one more thing before I end is I want to tell you about my latest project is flightcontrol.dev. And this is a full stack deploy platform that's optimized for full stack Blitz and Next.js apps. And it runs in your own AWS cloud account. So it's like Heroku, but on your own cloud account. And so this means that it's much better for doing full stack and backend development because it's on your own cloud account. And then we also don't mark up the prices there. So we will have a free tier that will support a free database and free hosting, and you won't have to touch AWS. So we're going to make a really nice experience there. And this it's pre-launch. We haven't launched yet, but probably within about 2 months we'll be onboarding first people. So if you're interested in flight control at all, go to flightcontrol.dev and drop in your email there. Okay, so get started at blitzjs.com. That is the place to go to get everything you need. And here's my Twitter handle and the BlitzJS Twitter handle if you're interested in keeping up with us there. And last but not least, I have a special gift for you, free stickers. Go to blitzjs.com/stickers and enter in your address, and we will send you free stickers anywhere in the world. All right, thank you so much. So I think we had some questions.
Yeah, please feel free to ask questions at this time.
All right, so Jacob asked way back at the beginning, he said, Blitz is great and thank you for the stickers. So he got ahead of you all. I have a question on multi-tenancy apps for Blitz. I was following the docs and quickly got lost in all the details. So I can relate. Multi-tenancy, what multi-tenant means is that you have multiple different like user accounts that have their own special data that other users can't access. Okay, so this is like how a lot of businesses are built, where so let's say I build the app and I have customer 1 that has a bunch of data that only they can see, and I have customer 2 that has data that only they can see, but all the data is in my database, like all mixed together, right? And it's just so this is it's kind of a hard problem to get used to. It's the same with no matter how you're building it, what framework, you kind of have to learn how to model your data, structure your data in the database, and then also how to query that. So we have a docs page on multi-tenancy, which is what he's referring to. And apparently we need to do a better job on this page to try to make it easier for people getting started. I guess the best way, Jacob, is ask if you join the Blitz Discord and start a thread in there and talk about where you're getting stuck, what you're what you're doing, where you're stuck, etc., and we can get you going. Okay, so Joey said, can you show how the routing is handled? So the routing, I'm guessing you're assuming page routing. Page routing is handled by the file system. So I'm going to guess that you have not used Next.js or Blitz. So it's the same for both. So you have a pages folder, and inside the pages folder, So if you have pages/home.js, then home is going to be your route. If it's pages/users, like you have a users folder in there, pages/users/new.js, then that would be /users/new. So hopefully that helps. And we have doc. If you look at the Blitz docs, we have more examples of how that works. Okay, lots of awesomes and wows in the chat. So I'm glad you're liking it. Sign me up, yay! All right. Do you have some websites you can show us online that are live, that are more fleshed out, that we can see as an example of what's possible? So we do have a showcase page, blitzjs.com/showcase. Most of those are not, the code isn't available. I think you're probably wanting to see some code. So we do have a wiki that has, I'm gonna putting this in the chat, a link to our wiki, which has a list to some other things made us Blitz and some source code. There's also someone posted in a chat, in our Discord chat recently, asking for an example, and someone posted something that we haven't got added to the wiki yet. So you can really build like anything that you want, whether it's more like an e-commerce site or whether it's more like a dashboard type of thing.
I got
So,
some
yeah,
questions for you.
Yeah.
Like, well, first off, it's kind of like, what did you eat in Thailand that made you like have this idea? You said you were like on a hammock or something, right?
Yeah. What was that? Sorry, I missed the first part. You said what?
What did you eat in Thailand?
What did I eat? I don't know. No, I don't recall eating or drinking anything out of the ordinary.
No, I was just gonna say it's like a really, 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 really great idea. I mean, it's a lot of good stuff that I just saw, like, when I was, watching like the initial YouTube video that I talked about, and then kind of like going through this again, like you're following a lot of great like design patterns, and you're also like doing a lot of great things that, I myself would recommend, like if I was working on a team, like the way you kind of handle like, errors. It's like beautiful. Like that whole idea for like, just being able to translate a function from the server side to the client side. I guess for me, like, can you explain like your thought process when it comes to like building, like how did you get this idea? And then how did you go about like, starting this open source community?
So I would say for the most part, it's just very intuitive for me. Like I don't have to think hard about how I want something to be. It's like I just know how I want it to be, how it should be. So most of, yeah, a lot of the stuff is just like I'm like, oh, I don't like how this is, and I'm like, okay, well, this, sometimes I have smaller things I have to like, think more different ideas and stuff, but a large part of it is just sort of kind of intuition. And I have a low pain tolerance, so I'm like very sensitive to things that I don't like or things that are like cumbersome with development. It's like, this could be so much easier. I know it could be. And that's kind of what led, I think, to really starting Blitz was like, I knew that could just be so much better. And I like when I first started it, I mean, I've never built a framework before, right? Like I was not qualified to build a framework. Like I'm not some Google level engineer or whatever, but I have enough self-confidence to be like, okay, I'm going to figure this out, and like I've figured tons of stuff out. It's like I'm still, making up as I go, learning as I go. It's so yeah,
For sure. I mean, like some of the things that I really like are the scaffolding, which I think that is something we don't have in React. Like you do have it in Angular, but like I really love like you kind of were like looking at Ruby on Rails. I guess maybe, right? Like maybe I'm assuming here, but like you were kind of looking at it and like, taking a lot of good ideas from that.
For sure.
Just building this in that same way. Was this like for you when you were building Blitz? And by the way, also, is Blitz your middle name? Because I saw somewhere in the ad promo, your name is, Brandon Blitz Bayer. So I wasn't sure. Is this like your
No, it's
nickname?
not my middle name.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was
but
just
I'm
curious.
now known as the Blitz guy.
You're the Blitz guy. Okay. So it is your middle name now.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, so just like, I guess like, was this, like in the beginning, kind of like your own take on making a Ruby on Rails? Like, was that kind of like what you wanted and then it kind of morphed
Yeah.
into that? Okay.
Yeah. It was always like Rails for JavaScript. Like that's what I was like. Rails was always the inspiration, the model of like, I want something like this, but for JavaScript and React.
Yeah, yeah. So Joey asks, I need to like start asking questions from also the chat. If people have questions here, feel free to do it in the chat, or you can speak over me. Like if you have like a burning question, that's totally fine. Like I cool with interrupts. But so yeah, just basically, Joey asked, how many years have you been programming? And like, how did you get, I guess my question to extend that is, how did you get to like this cool intuitive state, that you're in?
So I went to college for electrical engineering, and partway through that, I took a software class as part of the double E course, and I was like, okay, now wow, this is awesome. The software, this is what I want to do. So I proceeded to get a job as an intern. So this had been 2010 when I got my first intern job as an embedded software engineer. So this was not web at all. It was programming microchips with the C language.
Sure.
And so I did that for 5 years. And then I learned Ruby on Rails through an online boot camp. And that kind of got me everything I needed to know about web programming. And then I quickly fell in love with JavaScript and React. Been doing that for the past 4 or 5 years. So about 11 years total that I've really been programming. And I think like I've just kind of, I think I've always sort of had a natural kind of inclination towards design, like caring about good design. Like I got into Apple like earlier on because I loved the design that they had, and so I think that's been something I kind of just naturally had. But I've also think it's been cultivated some with like learning about design books and just like thinking about, because I'm an entrepreneur as well, so I'm thinking about like making products and making things, how to make it better, more efficient. There's a book that was called The Design of Everyday Things
Yeah,
that I read.
totally familiar with it.
That was I think probably a pivotal book of, it's like, okay, if something is hard or like confusing or you mess up, it's because it's bad design. It's like the doors that like you push on it and then like, oh no, you have to open. That's bad design. Like it should be obvious whether you need to push or pull before you even touch it.
Yeah, totally. I'm always like thinking about that too. The other day, like I had to set up my own weight set because I work at Beachbody, and so I'm trying to work out in addition to like doing the programming. But like they had all these pictures and like they had I guess like stuff that I didn't really kind of understand, like in the whole the outline. It kind of looked like IKEA, right? Like you get those IKEA sets and you're just kind of like, oh, how do you do this? So in my own head, right, like I was trying to sort out the design, and then I guess somehow I figured it out, and I was just like really proud of myself. But then like I found myself later just like criticizing like that IKEA looking like sketch, and I was just like, I would just rewrite this because it doesn't make sense. Like why
Yep.
you need to hold the wrench in a certain way to be able to screw it on, and they didn't explain that. So when I start doing that, like my wife sort of gets mad at me and says, why do you always complain about everybody's designs? But that's just me. Yeah,
So
so totally agree with you.
Jacob has a question.
Sure, yeah, let's jump
If
in.
I have a couple of static pages for my app that I need to be public and fast, i.e. marketing, home, prices, FAQ, does Blitz expose static pages builds that Next provides? Yes. So by default, if you just create a new page, it's static. If you don't add get server-side props hook on there, or if you don't like add, so yeah, just by default, it's just static. Even if you add use query and use like the Blitz queries, it's still static. It'll just load data on the client. But if you're not loading data, then don't use query in there, and it'll just be fully static. So yeah. And then Sean says, do you ever plan on making Blitz for React Native? That's a great question, because the answer is basically yes. So right now you can use the Blitz auto-generated API endpoint in mobile applications, and some people are doing that. It's a bit of a blaze your own path at this point. We don't have really good docs or utilities to help you, but after 1.0, that is going to be a focus for us to make it easier to use with mobile apps. And so, for example, we could generate a SDK that you can just import to easily use. And then we also want to bring the magical zero API experience to React Native. So picture having your Blitz app in a repo, having your React Native app in the same repo, and then importing your Blitz queries directly into your React Native components, and then it just automatically working for you. So that's the dream that we're going for.
Sean says, awesome, can't wait. I got a question for you. You use SQL a lot in your demos. Does this work well with Mongo? Or any no SQL?
Prisma has Prisma's Mongo support is in early access.
Okay.
Or preview or something like that. So Prisma does support Mongo now, and if you don't want to use Prisma, you can use Mongoose or whatever else you want, and yeah, it'll work great. What you'll lose is like if you don't have the types. I think there's a TypeScript version for Mongo, I think. So that's it works great with Blitz. It's just what's the DX for just that database access? It doesn't really relate to Blitz or the types. So.
Right. And yours is very type strict, which is a cool thing, because you can see in real time, all right, I got this piece of data and here are the properties that I've got associated with it. So that is actually kind of the cool upsell part of it, you know. Do we have any other questions? I want to just be mindful, if anybody wants to speak up too, feel free.
Yeah, I just would like to add the configuration part. Configuration part was amazing in the Blitz actually. That yeah, well, nowadays, right? Most of the framework we have to configure ourselves when it comes to third party. So that was great actually.
Yep, I'm a big fan of owning your stack. And I think authentication is something that you should own. It should be part of the framework. It should be in your code versus using a third party, because third party is in theory is great, somebody else takes care of it, but then Auth0, for example, is really difficult to use in local development, and it's just it's a mess. So I kind of have a unique perspective, I think, on the balance between what lives in the framework versus a third party versus your own code, and that's kind of some art
balance
and, balance there.
Yeah, I was almost going to say, right, to Ranjit's point, right, and maybe I don't know enough, but there is kind of an element of Java Spring in the way you write, or the way that looks. When I look at Blitz, a lot of it is kind of there's magic kind of going on behind the scenes. And so when you set up these controllers, we set up these models and stuff like that, it automatically works with, some of the, I guess you call it, I'm going to call them gems, but I guess you kind of call it your
Recipes.
Yeah. So I just thought there's a cool parallel. Maybe you didn't intend for that, but I think it kind of came out that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think for me, it makes a lot of sense. When I look at this, I'm just oh, this looks like a great way to move some of the legacy apps that I'm working with into like something more like, modern Next.js level. What does everybody else here think today on this call? Like, do you think Blitz Js is pretty awesome? Just curious, like the kind of feedback that we have for tonight's presentation.
I haven't got any banana peels thrown at me yet, so.
Awesome. Do you have I guess you said Algolia helps, or Algolia is using Blitz. Do you have like a link to like anything that you can show with them? Or is that in the
No,
link that you
they
provided,
have-
Joey?
They have a couple internal tools that are
Okay.
for Blitz.
I'd love to like find out more about that. That's actually pretty cool. All right, well, last call for questions. If we don't have any more though, then we can kind of call it a night. And you all know how to reach me. Hopefully, I'll just share my screen one more time and then also provide Brandon's information as well. So easiest way to reach me is LinkedIn. I'll do it again for the chat. You can find me there, add me. If you want to follow the group on LinkedIn, here it is. The website is javascriptla.net, sometimes called HackBuddy. And all of our videos are recorded, so you'll be able to find them at youtube.com/hackbuddyorg. And if you ever get confused, like where is any of this, just go to the website. You can also tweet to us. You can also Instagram us. You can code with us and practice, so you're ahead and on top of your work. So that if you decide that you actually want to use Blitz Js, you have like some kind of proof of concept somewhere here with Team Hack. It's always growing. It's getting better every single day. We're on Discord and Slack, and there's a lot of like movement. So you'll probably end up leveling up your code base and your code skill. BlitzJS is at blitzjs.com. Feel free to use the links that Brandon provided today to also navigate to Discord. And Brandon, of course, provide them if you want in the chat. Here's the video that Brandon did on BlitzJS if you want to go check it out. And then, like I'm working on getting this recording up to YouTube. Check out Farmers Insurance. They have cool jobs. If you're looking for a job, they're our #1 sponsor. So we really love them and want to make sure that, we give them much support. And then, check out this wiki page from Blitz. This was also asked tonight. So you can see how you can get started and learn more about the project. All right.
So once again,
So
I have added my email address once again, in case if you want to reach for Farmers Insurance career.
Ruslan has his hand up.
Yeah, Ruslan has hands up.
Yes.
Oh, sure.
Hi, guys. Hi, Vijay. I just want to thank you, guys, for the great presentation. So thank you, Vijay, Ranjit, and Brandon. Brandon, 2 thumbs up. Blitz is looking great. It's a little bit not related to today's presentation, but I'm a part of the HackBuddy group with Vijay, and my Discord account has been compromised. So I have absolutely no access through Discord for the group communication. Is there any other way I can communicate with you, Vijay, or the group? Because I don't want to flood your LinkedIn account.
Oh, yeah. So there are other ways. I mean, so here, let me just do like a really quick thing. So basically, if you go to Team Hack, right, and you can't talk to us on Discord, you can still kind of like message us here through any of the projects we're working on. You can also go on Slack, which we have as well. The link for that is just on our website. Basically, like you would go to the Slack portion and then message us here. I mean, if you want to just talk to me through LinkedIn messages and try to like figure out like a way to get to something like this, that's totally fine. And then we can get you up to speed. Zoom also works. We have Zoom meetings all the time. So, there's a lot of different ways that we can reach out to the group. So it's no problem. Basically, what you want to do is just, find a medium you like other than Discord and then basically just start talking to me, and then I can kind of move you towards reaching the rest of the group.
Sounds good. Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
of course. Yeah, Brandon, do you want to close with anything?
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else. Would love to see you in the Blitz Discord. Happy to help any way I can.
Yeah, for sure. We love your idea, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be reaching out to you and want to gain some insight, me included. So thank you for the presentation today.
You're welcome.
All right. Last question. Oh, do you have a Discord link for the Blitz Js?
Yes.
Please share that.
It is discord.gg/BlitzJs. Just a second here.
Cool. And for anybody watching, afterwards on YouTube, if you're confused about any of the links, just feel free to reach out to us at JavaScript LA. You can do info@javascriptla.net, or you can directly message us on Slack and Discord. Should be able to get you the correct links so you can reach out. All right. Thank you so much. And everybody have a great night. We'll see you at the next meetup.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.